The next sutta is 7.7.70. The Buddha said, "Long ago, monks, there was a teacher named Arako, a coarse setter, freed of all lustful passions, and he had many hundreds of disciples. Now this was the doctrine that he taught his disciples. Short is the life of man, O Brahmin, O Brahman, O insignificant, trifling, fraught with much ill, with much trouble. By mantras awaken the people, do good, live the holy life. For the born there is no immortality." I'll just stop here for a moment. Here this course setter, Arako, he is talking to his disciples, so he called them Brahman or Brahmana. In the olden days, the renunciants were called Brahmanas because they were initially the renunciants were of the what we now call the Brahmin sect, but long ago they were called Brahmanas. And then this external sect ascetic, Arako, he's one of those who teach mantras. Mantras are different from suttas. Suttas that we chant, they consist of words with meanings, but mantras are words which have no meaning to us. There is no meaning to us, but there's something about these mantras which make them quite powerful, because they seem to invoke some spirits. So this Arako continued. He was teaching his disciples. He said, "Just as a drop of dew on the tip of a blade of grass, when the sun gets up, straight away dries up and lasts not a while. Even so, Brahman, like a dew drop is the life of man, insignificant, trifling, fraught with much ill and trouble. By mantras awaken the people, do good, live the holy life. For the born there is no immortality. Just as a bubble appears on the water when the sky deva rains down big drops, but straight away bursts and lasts not a while, even so, Brahman, like a water bubble is the life of man, insignificant, trifling, fraught with much ill and trouble. For the born there is no immortality. Just as the line of a stick on water straight away vanishes and lasts not a while, even so, Brahman, like the line of a stick on water is the life of man, insignificant, trifling, fraught with ill and trouble. For the born there is no immortality. Just as a mountain river, winding here and there, swiftly flowing, taking all along with it, never for a moment or for an instant or for a second pauses, but rushes on, swirls along and sweeps forward. Even so, Brahman, like a mountain river is the life of man, insignificant, trifling, fraught with ill and trouble. For the born there is no immortality. Just as a strong man might fashion a gob of spittle on the tip of his tongue and spit it out with utmost ease, even so, Brahman, like a spittle gob is the life of man, insignificant, trifling, fraught with ill and trouble. For the born there is no immortality. Just as a lump of meat thrown into an iron pot heated all day, straight away splits up and lasts not a while. Even so, Brahman, like a lump of meat is the life of man, insignificant, trifling, fraught with ill and trouble. For the born there is no immortality. Just as a cow about to be slaughtered, being led to the shambles, each time she raises her foot is nearer to destruction, nearer to death. Even so, Brahman, like a doomed cow is the life of man, insignificant, trifling, fraught with much ill and much trouble. By mantras awaken the people, do good, live the holy life. For the born there is no immortality. Now at that time, monks, the span of man's life was 60,000 years, and at 500 years, girls were ripe to wed. Then man had but 6 afflictions, namely cold and heat, hunger and thirst, and the twofold excrement. Yet though such was the longevity, such the duration, and such the freedom from affliction of the people, the teacher Arako taught this doctrine to his disciples. Short is the life of man, O Brahman, insignificant and trifling, fraught with much ill, much trouble. By mantras awaken the people, do good, live the holy life. For the born there is no immortality. Now, monks, if a man would speak truly, he should say, short is the life of man, insignificant and trifling, fraught with ill and trouble. By wisdom awaken the people, do good, live the holy life. For the born there is no immortality. For today, monks, he who lives long lives but 100 years or a little more. And though a man live 100 years, he lives but 300 seasons. 100 seasons of winter, 100 seasons of summer, and 100 seasons of rain. And though he live 300 seasons, he lives but 1200 months. 400 months of winter, 400 months of summer, and 400 months of rain. And though he live 1200 months, he lives but 2400 fortnights, 800 fortnights of winter, 800 fortnights of summer, and 800 fortnights of rain. And though he live 2400 fortnights, he lives but 660,000 days, 630,000 days, 12,000 days of winter, 12,000 days of summer, and 12,000 days of rain. And though he lives 630,000 days, he eats but 270,000 meals, 420,000 meals in winter, 420,000 meals in summer, and 420,000 meals in the rainy season. This includes mother's milk and foodless times. Here by foodless times is meant, agitated he eats no food, grieved he eats no food, ill he eats no food, fasting he eats no food, and not getting any he eats no food. Thus monks, I account the life of man who lives 100 years, his lifespan, the seasons, the years, the months, the fortnights, the days and nights, meal times and foodless times. So, the Buddha continued, the last part. Monks, the work to be done by a teacher for his disciples, seeking their good, by compassion, because of compassion, that has been done for you by me. Monks, at the foot of these trees, in these empty places, cultivate jhana, monks. Be not slothful. Let there be no occasion for you to reproach yourselves afterwards. This is our command to you. That's the end of the sutta. And it's quite an interesting sutta. You can see this course setter Arako, he can be considered an external sect teacher because he does not teach the Buddha Dhamma. Yet we can see that there is some good Dhamma in his teaching, since he was telling people about the impermanence of life and the urgency to cultivate the spiritual path. And the similes given in his teaching are quite good. For example, he says, just as a drop of dew on the tip of a blade of grass, when the sun gets up, straight away dries up and lasts not a while. Even so, like a dewdrop is the life of man. Just as a bubble appears on the water when the sky deva rains down big drops, but straight away bursts and lasts not a while. Even so, like a water bubble is the life of man, etc., etc. So you find his teachings here are quite good. Now, we find in this sutta it's mentioned that during his days, man's lifespan was 60,000 years. In the suttas, we find that man's lifespan can go up to a maximum of 80,000 years on the average. Here, during Arako's time, it was 60,000 years, and a woman could give birth at 500 years. And at that time, there were only 6 types of sickness, of afflictions at that time. You have to suffer cold, you have to suffer heat, hunger, thirst, and you have to urinate and empty your bowels. These were the 6 afflictions. And even then, Arako thought that life was short. Even a lifespan of 60,000 years, he says, is short. So how much more how much shorter is life nowadays, because when our average lifespan is only about 70 to 75 years. So there should be more urgency for us to cultivate to the spiritual path, because very soon we will be passing away from this world. You also notice that Arako taught the people to recite the mantra that was supposed to be the Buddha's previous life. But in the Buddha, when after he was enlightened, in our Theravada suttas, the earlier suttas, Buddha never taught the mantras. The Buddha taught the way to attain wisdom, which is the Aryan Eightfold Path. So in our Theravada suttas, there is no mantra teaching. Now, just now we said that life is short. If we consider it this way, suppose a person is 40 years old, and we know that we live up to about 70 years old. That means we have only 30 more years to go, which means that we have only 30 more new years to celebrate. When one goes by, you have 29, and another goes by, you have 28. If we look at it that way, then we can see that our time is very, very limited. So because of that, now we should constantly think of impermanence. In the Satipatthana Sutta, we are taught to contemplate on the different types of corpses. And that is a very good contemplation, how in a few more years' time our body will turn into the corpse, different stages of rotting, different stages of decay. We constantly contemplate that. Then it helps us to cut the conceit I am, the feeling that I exist. It helps us to cut that. And then the last part of the sutta, the Buddha tells the monks not to be slothful, but to cultivate jhana. Actually, sometimes some suttas they translate it as meditate monks, but actually the word is jayati. Jayati is to cultivate jhana. Because in the Buddha's teachings in the Theravada Suttas, meditation is synonymous with cultivating jhana. That's why we can see the Aryan Eightfold Path, the last factor is jhana. And also in one of the earlier suttas, we heard the Buddha said, Samadhi mago, samadhi kumago. Samadhi is the way, no samadhi is the wrong way. So from there, when Buddhism went over to China and they started the meditation school, they call it the Chan Zhong. That means the Zen school. And the word Chan comes from the word Chan No, which is jhana. So the meditation school is actually the jhana school in the China. Now the next sutta is 5.5.48. The Buddha said, monks, there are these 5 states not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, by Deva, Mara or Brahma, nor by anyone in the world. What 5? Where aging brings no old age. That state is not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, etc. Where sickening brings no sickness, nor dying, death, nor wasting, destruction, nor ending brings the end. That state is not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, by Deva, Mara or Brahma, nor by anyone in the world. Monks, to the unlearned average man, aging brings old age, and when he is old, he reflects not thus. Not to me only does aging bring old age, but wheresoever there is a coming and going, a passing on and a rising of creatures, to all aging brings old age. And if when old age comes, I should mourn and pine, weep and wail, and beat the breast and fall into distraction, enemies would rejoice while friends would grieve. Food would not please me, ugliness would come upon my body, affairs would be neglected, and enemies would rejoice while friends would weep, would grieve. And when old age comes, he mourns, pines, weeps, wails, beats his breast, and falls into distraction. Monks, this man is called an unlearned average man. Pierced by the poison dart of sorrow, he just torments himself. Again, monks, to the unlearned average man, sickening brings sickness, dying death, wasting destruction, and ending brings the end. And when the end is near, he reflects not thus, not to me only does ending bring the end, but wheresoever there is a coming and going of creatures, a passing on and an arising, to all ending brings the end. And if when the end is near, I should mourn and pine, weep and wail, and beat the breast and fall into distraction, enemies would rejoice while friends would grieve. Food would not please me, ugliness would come upon my body, affairs would be neglected, and enemies would rejoice while friends would weep. And when the end is near, he mourns, pines, weeps, wails, beats his breast and falls into distraction. Monks, this man is called an unlearned average man. Pierced by the poison dart of sorrow, he just torments himself. To the learned Aryan disciple also, monks, aging brings old age. But when he is old, he does reflect in that aforesaid way, that not to me only does ending bring the end, but wheresoever there is a coming going of creatures, a passing on, etc., etc. And when age comes, he does not mourn, nor pine, nor weep, nor wail, nor beat his breast, nor fall into distraction. Monks, this man is called a learned Aryan disciple. Drawn out is the poison dart of sorrow with which the unlearned average man torments himself. The sorrowless, dart-free Aryan disciple has cooled the self entirely. So also to the learned Aryan disciple, sickening brings sickness, dying death, wasting destruction, ending the end. And when the end is near, he reflects in a like manner. That is, not only to me does ending bring the end, but wheresoever there is a coming going of creatures, etc., etc. Monks, this man is called a learned Aryan disciple. Drawn out is the poison dart of sorrow with which the unlearned average man torments himself. The sorrowless, dart-free Aryan disciple has cooled the self entirely. Monks, these are the 5 states, not to be got to by recluse or Brahmin, by Deva, Mara or Brahma, or by anyone in the world. That's the end of the sutta. Here basically is saying that no being can avoid aging, sickness and dying. Although the form it takes may vary. For example, in the heavenly world, it is not so visible. You don't see the aging so visible. An ordinary person, Putujana, does not reflect properly when he's old or when he's dying, that all beings must grow old and die. And so he does not accept aging and tries to make himself, for example, look younger. He does not accept death and looks for all ways to cure himself. But one who understands the Dhamma accepts aging. He grows old gracefully. When death comes, he knows he's lived his life skillfully and he's not remorseful because he knows he's bound for a good rebirth. So that's about this sutta. The last thing I like to say is a lot of people, when they are sick, for example, with cancer, etc., they rush here and there trying to look for a cure because they don't accept death. But if they find a cure, they are very, very happy. But then they forget that cure is only for a short while, and death will come again to visit them. So, but a person who understands the Dhamma, he accepts all these things, growing old, sickening, dying. The next sutta is 5.8.78. The Buddha said, "Monks, there are these 5 fears in the way." What 5? Take the case of a monk who reflects thus: I am now young, a mere youth, black-haired, and blessed with the beauty of youth, the heyday of youth, the prime of youth. But time will come when old age shall touch this body, and when grown old and overcome by age, not easy is it to turn to the Buddha's word. Not easy things are forest wildernesses, the outland bed and seat to seek. Before that state come to me, unwelcome, undesired, unloved. Lo, I will put forth energy against that time, even to attain the unattained, to master the unmastered, to realize the unrealized. And of that state possessed, I will dwell comforted even when old. Monks, this is the first sphere in the way. Again he reflects, I have health and well-being, a good digestion, which is neither over-cold nor overheated, but even and suitable for striving. But time will be when sickness shall touch this body, and sick and ill, not easy is it to turn to the Buddha's word. Lo, I will put forth energy and dwell comforted even when sick. Monks, this is the second fear in the way. Again he reflects, now there is no famine and crops are good, food is easy to get, and it is easy to keep oneself going by gleanings and favors. But time will be when there is a famine, bad crops, and difficulty in getting food. Nor will it be easy to keep oneself going by gleanings and favors. And the famine-stricken men will move to where there is ample food, and there one will dwell in a crowd and a throng. And where such conditions are, not easy is it to turn to the Buddha's word. Lo, I will put forth energy and dwell comforted even in time of famine. Monks, this is the third fear in the way. Again he reflects, now men dwell in friendly fellowship together, as mingled milk and water. They do not quarrel, but look upon one another with friendly eye. But time will be when fear is about, perils of bandits, and the country folk mount their carts and drive away, and the fear-stricken men will move away to where there is safety, and there one will live in crowds and throngs. And where such conditions are, not easy is it to turn to the Buddha's word. Lo, I will put forth energy and dwell comforted even in time of fear. This is the fourth fear in the way. Moreover, monks, the monk reflects thus, now the Sangha lives in friendly fellowship together, finding comfort in one teaching. But the time will come when the Sangha will be divided. And when that happens, not easy is it to turn to the Buddha's word. Not easy things are forest wildernesses, the outland bed and seat to seek. Before that state come, unwelcome, undesired, unloved. Lo, I will put forth energy against that time, even to attain the unattained, to master the unmastered, to realize the unrealized. And of that state possessed, I will dwell comforted, even though the Sangha be divided. Monks, this is the fifth fear in the way. These monks are the 5 fears in the way. That's the end of the sutta. So this sutta is reflections on impermanence. Because of impermanence, our present state can always change. So the person cultivating the holy life or the spiritual path should always consider that you are growing old day by day, and when we grow older, it's much more difficult to practice the spiritual path. So now it's better that we put forth energy now than to think of putting forth energy in the future. As we heard the previous sutta, that whenever we can find some time every day, we should practice some cetos samatha to tranquilize the mind. Otherwise, we are not living by Dhamma. The second one is to consider that sickness one day will come to us. So before we become sick, we should put forth energy. The third one, famine. Fourth one, bandits. And the fifth one, which is applicable only to monks, is that the Sangha will be divided. So these are the contemplations on impermanence we should often make, so that we get the urgency to practice the holy life.